Happy Saturday, Smite fans. You are watching the EUSCC, bit of a pregame show before the SPL kicks off at 1 p.m. Eastern Time today. My name is Dolson, or Purple Man, and that's Gormizer, or Blue Man. We're going to be bringing you all the action on the desk here to start off this day. And Gormizer, we're really getting down the stretch here. We're starting to get towards the end of the first phase here in the SCC, so all of these games ever so important, including for Just F6 and their opponent Pandamonium today. And while the top two spots seem unlikely for this Just F6 team taking on Pandamonium, as I mentioned, then Fishies versus Sturdy Artisans will be our last North American game. Important to try to get that first win of the phase nonetheless.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really big for them, like you said, just to turn things around, because it's not necessarily going to be a good performance, right, if you end the phase with 0. But I would actually argue for Just F6, like, getting one win on the board is nice just to say that you didn't get shut out. I think for Pandamonium, it's a little more of a necessary win, though, right? They're the ones that are really kind of fighting upwards right now. So for Just F6, your chances and shots of climbing up to the top 2, not as likely as Pandemonium's here. So I think they have a little more drive in them there from that third place spot. That's not to say that Just F6 isn't going to just fight back. I mean, they recently had a roster change. Roulat traded out for Worst Turtle, so I expect that their jungle matchup and their fight back is still going to be presence. And honestly, that's worse news for Pandemonium, knowing that at any given time, they could just flex on you. Maybe this new jungle's going to work a little bit better. Maybe things are going to be cleaner for them.
So what does that tell you, I think, about, or do you think about this team, that you're 0-5 in the hole here? I mean, it's a long road back to getting towards that top 2, but they're still making roster swaps trying to improve this team. What does that show you as far as the drive goes for a team like Just F6?
Pretty much exactly what you would want out of it, right? Where they recognize, like, you know what? Like, this is just the first phase. Like, there's plenty of opportunities. I can't remember if there's relegations. I'm assuming there's relegations for SCC, because there typically are when it comes to the SSC and the way they interact. And so, you know, if you're Just F6, there's still a conversation around maybe trying to dodge things like that. But realistically, you're looking at a year where, you know, where you're still shooting for the top, right? Like, maybe this first phase was a growing phase for you. And that's something that I think is the most important to impact. I think this applies in the SPL as well, but, like, sometimes you're just bad at the beginning, man. Like, sometimes you just suck, and then you get better. Sometimes we don't get to see the getting better. Sometimes the getting better isn't enough to leave last place. And so for Just S6, they really want that getting better to be, you know, okay, maybe we didn't get any wins this phase. Maybe next phase, well, to be seen yet, right? They still have opportunities. Right. But then in the second phase, it's let's have like 3 or 4 wins. You know, in the third phase, it's let's be top 3. And then, you know, as the year goes on, have more goals for yourself. So I think the fact that they're being proactive is a really good sign for them. Plus, they've got a pretty versatile gut pick. And I think I've said this before, but, like, they have the closest Titan defenses that I've ever seen. They almost always end up losing. But it is so insane how much they get so close to having those great plays, and I think we're just on the cusp of seeing them start making them.
I'm with you there, Gore. It'd be so easy just to kind of roll over and say, well, we haven't won yet, we're not going to win, let's just, you know, cruise through and see what we can do. This Just F6 team still making changes, trying to improve themselves, and that's what's important here. Pandemonium, though, a team that has found some success, and a team that still has a little stretch to go here, knocking on the door of that top 2 area. With a win here, they would be tied for second place, I believe. Obviously, with tiebreakers and stuff in place, things tend to change. But this is a team, I wouldn't say built around Joshi necessarily, but Joshi out of the mid lane has had some fantastic games. Kana out of the solo lane, Gore, I think has been another big standout.
Yeah, I think Kana is the one that I always keep my eye on. It feels really difficult to control them specifically, and honestly, this is a team that it feels like it has just been able to find a lot of success. It's been a pleasure to watch them play. They get aggressive. Like, they're not as passive as what we can see out of some of the other teams, and because of that, it really opens up a conversation for their success and so far. And like, a lot of these highlights are against Accounting Department, which is a great showcase here for Pandemonium, but they've been able to take it and give a lot of the top teams a lot of trouble, so I'm excited to see what they can do. This, in my mind, like, if they want to really, really solidify themselves as a number 2 team or a top 2 team, this needs to be a 2-0 for them. Like, they can't mess around, they can't be relaxed about it, and I think that it's up to Just F6 to give them a lot of trouble making it happen that way.
Yeah, absolutely agreed. I mean, it's one thing in the standings to go up with a set win, but for confidence in themselves and us, a 2-0 over the team that hasn't gotten a win yet in the SEC, pretty important here for Pandamonium. Let's kick off picks and bans for game number 1 and see where that priority starts to fall. I think you look at what we've talked about here, Gore, and Kana, I think specifically, it's in such a weird spot for just F6 because I mean, I'm trying to find, I don't really see King Arthur down there, but Kana kind of decimates on that god. I don't know if King Arthur's in a spot where you're ready to pick ban him away. That'd be a heavy kind of dose of, I don't know, priority there for a pick that might be better left going on through. So I wonder if maybe there's some emphasis on Kana. There is a little bit there with the Sun Wukong taken away. But with the King Arthur still there, potentially a tier on the other end, Kana with those aggressive in-your-face picks, wide enough god pool to still find something here in the first 3.
And I think in one of those games we even saw him playing Osiris. And I can't remember.
Osiris,
I think that one was not a win for them. I'd have to go back and double check on that one. But the fact is I think that as nice as it is, I think the banning phase for Kana is used less to limit him because he's got an insane god pool, and this Achilles could very well be his, right? But more so to try and strip him of some of those more potent power picks, as you had highlighted, and getting rid of things like when I see teams, especially first pick, banning things like Tiamat. That's when I start to get a little worried for him, because that's typically kind of showcasing like, okay, you guys know a very specific set of gods, you know what you want to play, but unfortunately that leniency isn't leaning them to some of the more powerful gods that we've gotten to see. And Tiamat, in the right hands, that's a very important caveat, but in the right hands, I'd say similar to Baba Yaga, but Baba Yaga maybe even harder, is just going to be able to do a ton. That being said, Ymir Set, Dave, is a really, really good top 2 for him, so I guess I can't complain too much about their bans.
Yeah, that's one thing, just F6, it doesn't seem, and I agree with a lot of your points there with the bans being the way they are, kind of specific, can this guy play this god, so on and so forth. It seems like just F6, outside of maybe a couple of games, hasn't just straight up lost in picks and bans from what I've watched so far on the SEC, so they continue to draft well here with the Ymir Set, Chernabog, super prioritized early on in Season 8, fallen by the wayside a little bit to the likes of the Heimdall and the Anhur, but still in a good spot to be able to do some damage. Jingwei in that same conversation there as well. What do you think, though, about this Hunter priority? Anhur and Heimdall, both still on the board, Gore, and neither one looked at.
I think a lot of what comes into Jingwei, and this equation specifically, is if Chernabog goes up into the ult and dives into a team fight, I can back to base and get there a little fast. Like, the rotationary prowess of a Jingwei isn't as potent as, like, Chernabog and Apollo, but it can keep up. Plus, we've been highlighting how safe it is. It honestly might be one of those picks that, realistically, is, man, I don't want to deal with Ymir, I don't want to deal with Set, I don't want to deal with Chernabog. Jingwei can get out of all of those pretty easily, and at least pretty, normally, beads will be necessary pretty often, but she'll be fine for the most part. So maybe a little bit of safety in that pick as well, just to make sure that you can stay safe. So maybe a little half and half here of the rotationary and the safety.
Interesting. In the mid lane, Gore, we're seeing some similarities there as well. Not so much in the play styles of the Honest with the portal. I mean, obviously their kits are very different, but the idea of ranged, lockdown necessary type insta-burst damage, both teams have got a little bit of that. Ra a little bit more traditional in that regard. You get the lockdown, he can follow up with the Searing Pain, and that's going to be your big burst damage there for the fight. Is there enough lockdown, Gore, for just F6 for you to feel good about this Ra pick?
Yes, I think we have enough knock-ups, stuns, freezes, slows, what have you, and roots even in there, like, enough that there should be setup. Plus, and I'm going to say this, if you're locking in Ra and you can't freehand a couple of snipes, then you're not locking him in for the right reasons, right? Like, it's appropriate. I like the team they built around him, but they also need to be able to free aim it a little bit. Don't want any trick shots, don't need your 360 no-scope Ra snipes, but, I mean, they're cool, but I definitely think that this is a good comp. Ra is, quote-unquote, the weakest link on this team, but last year we saw him be a very high-priority power pick. His healing's going to be a little lesser than what it used to be, but I still think he's great because of his damage. I still think he's great because of his passive, that movement speed that you're able to get stacked up as you throw out abilities.
Yep.
It just makes him a little more survivable. Not anywhere near as survivable as, like, a Yanis, who will literally just walk through a wall, but still enough that Tsukiyomi, Jingwei, I guess actually in this case it'd be Tsukiyomi, Achilles, maybe even this Ganesh, are going to have to chase down this Ra a little more more heavy-handed than they would otherwise for some of the other mid laners. Not the same as Elite, but still, he's going to outrun you.
Well, Just F6 have given them a chance straight out of picks and bans. Game number 1 against Pandamonium starts right now.
Thank you, Dave and Gore. Aggro and Mifflin kicking off your Saturday morning with the European SCC as Just F6 looks to find the win column for the first time this phase. But Miff, I think Pandemonium's draft is well equipped in this one to fend off the challengers. I like what Pandemonium has.
I like it a lot as well. My only concern for Pandemonium in this match is once they do fall behind, I think their defense in a siege situation is going to struggle. But that's kind of the story behind every single Giannis team. Every time you have one of those unorthodox mages that just struggles to keep people outside the base, outside the Phoenix with the minion waves as well. But Pandemonium's been doing pretty well so far this year. I'm sure they're planning to win and not put themselves in that compromised position.
Don't think that they have to worry about that too much if they execute on their game plan, but Just F6 has thrown wrenches in teams' game plans. It's not like they have been completely blown out in every single game this year. They have certainly been competitive, just haven't been able to find that win column quite yet. What do you see out of this composition that makes you hopeful they might be able to do it here today?
It's a pretty standard Smite composition. You've got decent early game potential. Lestemix over there inside the solo lane should be able to hold his own, so you have the option to either rotate Worst Turtle over and potentially find a kill on Akana, or you could just leave him there and allow Worst Turtle to roam the rest of the map on this set pick, which is incredibly strong in the early game. The second he takes over to having boots, I'd say he's going to be a massive threat on the map. And there's just decent follow-up from a range. If Sotos is on point with these Searing Pains, should always pretty easily be able to finish off these kills. And then Toti GR on this Chernobog means that he's always going to be there in the team fight. At no point should Pandemonium be outnumbering Just F6 in a skirmish across the map.
Sarpé lurking on this right-hand side. Lestemix did just de-transform back to the human form, but pretty wary of where Sarpé could be, so looks like that will not end up being a kill for the Pandemonium side. The only concern that I have about this composition is Preds just moseys on into a Ymir, no fear whatsoever, and probably should have given that some more respect. That's the easiest first blood Just F6 will get all year. Preds gifts one over to the Order side. I was going to say that Rotwin's got to have a pretty solid game because he's really the only guaranteed setup for Isotos on this Raw, but I don't know, if people are just going to walk into him like that, then maybe it'll be easier than I thought.
Yeah, normally Ymirs have to pick up Blink in that first Relic slot if they want to make an aggressive play like that, but as you already highlighted, Preds just saunters on in, does not even take his eyes off his phone, texting and driving, if you would, but Rotwin now going to have this defensive Relic inside of the shell, and I guess you don't really have a trade-off there. Finding first blood for your team, that's pretty huge.
Giving yourself a lead in this duo lane, and this Chernobog is shown to be capable of carrying games when ahead, the ability to get across the map. Very, very difficult for even a god like Jingwei to match, but this Chernobog has been hit or miss at times. I'm personally a Chernobog fan. I think that we should see more of him rather than less of him. Where do you sit on that fence?
When you say hit or miss on Chernobog, I think it's hit when Barracuda, miss when otherwise, generally, is what I've seen so far at the SCC and SPL level. But I think that the god certainly has potential, but inside the lane itself, I do not think he's got the best boxing potential. If you're laning against something like an Uul or an Onher or even an Artemis, I feel like Chernobog is really going to struggle. So you have to pick your fights and pick when you want to lock him in pretty wisely. Up against Jingwei, should be fine.
Little bit missed time there on the subsequent knockup from Streak Up, but it might not matter. Toddy escapes with one auto to spare, maybe two with the health pot ticking, so close there in the duo lane. A lot of disrespect happening over here, Mifflin. First it was Preds disrespecting the Ymir freeze, then Toddy disrespecting the 2v1, but only Pandemonium support gets punished of those two instances.
Yeah, Toddy legitimately watched Preds walk at him. I don't even think he swung an auto attack and just ate the CC chain and dared them to do it properly, and Pandemonium did not.
Toddy on the way back with that ultimate potentially. No, I thought he was, but decides not to show up. He used it, but didn't actually teleport in, and Rotwin kind of looking around like, where's my boy? Well, with the Worst Turtle showing up and Isotos, they're going to use these Giannis portals to try and get out of danger, and in danger they will. Joshi using that Giannis utility to perfection, and just F6 come up empty-handed on their rotation.
Yeah, Sarpei barely makes it out of there. Sotos had already used ultimate in lane, so did not have it available to try and finish out that kill. Unfortunate for him, but interesting decision from Toddy GR to just drop the slow from the ultimate and not utilize the repositioning tool. Gotta think that he could have potentially got there in time to help out Rotwin, at least block a couple of auto attacks, but instead prioritizes his own safety like ADCs are apt to do.
Rotwin stepping up again, this time to try and get the purple. Unsuccessful in that invade. Did fall down on the Pandamonium side, but no one picking it up with Streak up too low on mana, and now no purification beads. So a good surge forward from Rotwin, despite not getting the buff, finds some value. No, I don't know how much how valuable these beads really are in this lane at this point. No blink on Rotwin means it's hard to get surprised by him. Worst Turtle's not coming with hard CC. You just have to dash out of the Chernobog combo. Not necessarily the biggest deal. As Sotos free and clear, he's got the green light at any given point apparently, and Joshi leisurely steps to his side and watches Sotos' snipe go awry, and then they instantly turn and burn. Bit of a weird start to this one here, Miff.
Look, I saw the attempt, right? Just F6 has Worst Turtle and Sotos essentially walk up to the tower line of Pandamonium. We saw Skewer get sent out. If that lands, it does a pretty decent chunk of damage to Joshi. It would also find the slow to set up for the Searing Pain. Unfortunately, Skewer missed and Searing Pain missed, and Worst Turtle is able to teleport away, whereas Ra, not quite as mobile, loses out on his life. These guys are throwing haymakers, aggro. That's all I can say. Everywhere I've looked so far, it has been a knockout punch attempt from both teams.
Yeah, no defense, all offense. That's the name of the game right now for this game. As we're trading Greater Scorpions, Pandamonium gonna grab the Forp, and just F6 with the Gorp, of course. Streak up now, uses that airstrike perfectly timed. That's where the beads would have come in handy, but didn't need them. Has the ultimate ready to go at any given time.
So you are a Forp Gorp guy. That's going to be a thing like all year.
Yes.
Like this isn't a
all
bit,
year
not,
long.
Okay.
Correct.
Like
yeah.
Fire
Scorpion,
it's not like it's too long. 2 syllables.
It's too long.
Much.
Right. Yeah. Too long. How about in Gold Fury Greater Scorpion? Like, give me a break. That's not happening either.
Gold Scorp.
No, because it's not. You've got different scorpions on the map. You know, you've got
Gold Scorp and Fire Scorp.
No, they
Left
spawn
and right.
in different places. No. Let's go for the gold scorp. They're like, gold's not up. You're like, no, I'm talking about the scorpion. You don't have to. You know, are they talking about oracles? I don't think so. Now you know, if you go Gorp and Forp, exactly what you're talking about. I don't understand why you're hesitant to embrace our Gorp overlords, Mifflin. I think that it's good, and you should just start using them.
All right, you know what? You are legitimately just my boss, essentially. So Gorp and Forp it is going forward. Lestimix looking for a solo kill, but Kana a little bit too tanky, going to be able to get himself out of that situation. And the game has slowly worked its way into a lull right now. We're at an even state as far as gold and experience goes all the way across the board. But I think at this point, Pandamonium should have a distinct advantage. Look for a fight.
Snipe that time lands on a Prez, and Rotwin's ultimate's going to get the job done, but Sarpei looking to chase down Worst Turtle, and he'll do that successfully. Piercing Moonlight turns to be pretty good, but Toddy's in the wrong part of town. Beads right on time from Sarpei. It's a double kill for the jungler for Pandamonium, and just when it looked like just F6, we're getting the ball rolling, Pandamonium steps up.
Yeah, that was a nice CC chain from Pandamonium to get the re-engage inside of that fight. I thought that Just F6 really did get out of there scot-free off the initial, but they just stick around inside of that engagement a little bit too long. They'd use so many of their resources off of the initiation that I just felt like they really didn't have the tools to keep that fight going any longer, and Pandamonium recognized that perfectly and put the gas pedal in themselves. Both neutral objectives going to be spawning very soon. Gold Fury already up, and Pandamonium has a decent draft at burning it. If Preds is able to get there with the Dharmic Pillars to shred away the HP and defense, should make it pretty easy for them to burn it down, even though Pandamonium is lacking in the secure department. Got to be worried about Sotos and his Searing Pain.
Maybe Sarpei can be the one to track him down then, because he is off to a great start. All 4 kills for Pandamonium in the jungler's hands, and As you always say, Mifflin, it's the most important role on the map at all times. I
yeah.
agree, because jungle's OP, and that's how it is. But now you've got to go, well, now it's really in your hands for Sarpei to try and take control of this game. Once you're sitting at 4-0, I feel like that you've just got to make all the plays happen.
You do, but this 4-0 is deceptive. It's only a 1-level lead with 4 kills to the 0-1 of Worst Turtle. Sarpei's been spending so much time looking for ganks and putting out pressure that he's been sacrificing his own farm in the jungle. I think he might be able to just rest on his laurels for a couple of minutes to try and establish himself a more solidified lead, because even that 1 level has already slipped away. Both junglers at 11. He's got a gold advantage, and that's about it.
About 600 gold in his favor, so that explains the mace pickup over what Worst Turtle has so far in this one, but certainly not enough to turn into a full item quite yet. But maybe you wait around and wait for that 600 gold to equal finishing a tier 3 item over a tier 2 and leverage the power spike at that point. We'll have to wait and see, as both teams again trade Scorpions, but they trade sides this time. Pandamonium goes to the left-hand side to grab the greater Scorpion that spawns on their side of the map, and Just F6 do the same for the right. I don't know, man. These enhanced buffs, I've been asked, like, what do we think about which side is more important to get your buffs enhanced? For me, I think it's just, hey, it's free golden experience, and the buffs feel a little bit better, but I don't know how you feel about it.
Yeah, I've never once said, all right, I need to get my speed, red, blue, whatever buff enhanced so I can take this fight. It's, oh, nice, I've got a little bit more attack speed now, or I'm doing a little bit more damage. It's mainly about, as you said, the farm and clearing out the neutrals and making sure you are constantly on cooldown to get as much golden experience on cooldown as possible. But that's not to say that enhanced buffs can't change things. Like an enhanced red buff, I think, is likely one of the most important enhanced buffs in the game, just because it boosts your secure, boosts your ability to out-confirm your opposition on these neutral objectives like Gold Fury, like Pyromancer. It's a pretty nice little boost.
Certainly helps you stay in the fight a little bit longer with that lifesteal on it. So we'll see if Pandamonium, Pandamonium has the enhanced red, and the other side has enhanced on the speed and blue. That 20% CDR certainly feels good. The extra attack speed, they all feel good. No one's upset when they get an enhanced buff, but sometimes hard to leverage those into immediate advantages. Speaking of advantages, check out the mid lane. Sodos, despite that spill, Joshi, despite playing Giannis, usually the best farming mage, because he can get to all the farm on the map, actually a little bit behind in XP right now, 13-12 in Sodos' favor.
Yeah, Sodos has been allowed to free farm the middle of the map a pretty fair amount. We've seen Preds kind of hovering the center a little bit more so than Rotwin. Rotwin instead been kind of hovering the duo lane or splitting jungle farm, and that's given him a slight lead, but that's the trade-off, right? Your support ahead in exchange for your mid laner, maybe not the best situation for them as Pandemonium. Big grouping on the left-hand side. Maybe we see a fight erupt over these oracles.
Gold Fury next on the menu, it makes sense to prioritize getting them, as the ward for Just F6 falls off at the perfect time for Pandemonium, but they don't decide to pull the trigger on the Gold Fury itself. Rotwin does have a ward that he can drop down on that as well, so looks like we're going back to a bit of a slower pace after a pretty explosive start through maybe a little bit of mispositioning on both ends. Check in with those builds. Sarpei is at the point now where he's finished off his third complete item, with Worst Turtle a little bit behind, as we anticipated, but Listemix in the opposite situation. He's got his third item completed, where Kana does not. That's kind of the story across the board. Everyone close to those third items, but only the players who are a little bit ahead in their lanes are able to finish them off.
So we'll see if Just F6 has Listemix rotate out, maybe to try and take a fight around this Gold Fury, or if Sarpei is able to utilize this slight power spike and find a gank to create a situation where they could move in towards one of these neutrals. But as of right now, it seems like both teams are pretty content with the pace of the match. We haven't seen too many extensions from either side into the enemy jungle trying to find somewhere to get their feet in and steal something away. Instead, it really is just waiting for that 15-20 minute mark where we can start to see these teams start to group up as 5. And once we do get to that phase, Aggro, I think I might give a slight edge to Just F6 draft, but not enough so that I would build my game plan around it. It might be a 55-45 insofar as draft, and that's not enough of a difference for me to really plan around waiting for that point of the game.
Seems like that's their game plan for now, though. At least maybe waiting until Rotwen hits level 12. Might have better access to some relics. Good try by Sodos. Very close on that snipe, but just a little bit mistimed. As onto this left-hand side we go. Just F6, knowing that Pandamonium was on the Pyromancer, head towards Gold Fury. But remember, Pandamonium has that Giannis that can get there in a hurry. Gold Fury getting low, and it's too little, too late. Through space and time. Way too late from Joshi. And Just F6 claim the Gold Fury.
Yeah, Pandamonium have to realize that is going to be the response from Just F6, but it was a very slow rotation. They didn't need to utilize the Yanis ult. Had they all just walked over, they'd have got there at the exact same time as Preds. Likely would have been enough. Face just shown to scare Just F6 off of the Fury itself, but instead, they just go back to farming the neutrals. Again, waiting for their pace, waiting for this mid to late.
Rotwen taking a little bit of damage here, but don't think he's in too much trouble. In fact, he's trying to bait, potentially. His worst turtle was local to the area, but not going to take it. Pandamonium still keeping it nice and slow. I agree on the lack of contest being a little bit puzzling, because especially with the information that Just F6 had just used their raw snipe to try and steal away Pyromancer, that's normally the reason you wouldn't, as Pred's going to go for Toddy. Toddy standing his ground, all content in the middle of the cage. He still loses his tier 1 tower, but that's about all he loses. The tier 1 and maybe 180 HP.
Yeah, Toddy did not look pressed in the slightest. I don't think my man was even attempting to juke. There was no shot sent his way from Streak Up. He was wholly contented with just slamming that tower, and they do pick it up, but Dual Lane Tier 1 tower might be the least relevant tower on the map. It's not really a retreat path around these Gold Fury fights. It doesn't open the map up like a mid tower would, or even the solo side tower around these Fire Giant fights. It's just about that global Gold Fury team, 500 across the board, and maybe exposing that Tier 2 tower if Pandamonium are able to win out on a team fight cleanly around the Gold Fury.
Seems like these supports have been checking out what's going on in the SPL based on their relic choices. Upgraded Frenzy for Preds. Frenzy without the upgrade for Rotwen, as he's elected to finish off his Gauntlet of Thebes instead. Frenzy kind of all the rage right now, it seems, but for good reason. It ups that objective DPS significantly, and certainly doesn't hurt in the midst of a team fight.
Yeah, it's just that threat of, all right, you leave me alone with gold or fire for more than 10 seconds unattended? Yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and steal it away. That's how strong Frenzy can be. And as you highlighted, once the game simplifies to an offense or defense state, and you're using it for the team fight itself, can really turn these engagements around. I see another grouping from Pandamonium on the right-hand side. I'm getting jumpy, Aggro. Every time I see these guys stacked up, I feel like they're going to look for a fight. Maybe it's just this greater Scorpion invade attempt as they find Rotwen.
Oh, good damage onto Sarpei, but he uses both relics to avoid at least a portion of it. Up into the sky goes Toddy, and he's going to land back down among his team as Streak Up gets a little spooked by what's going on in the back line, and he is going to use his airstrike away as well. So a lot of relics used on the side of Pandamonium, both relics for Preds and Sarpei now on cooldown, as well as the ultimates for the duo lane. Double freeze from Lotwin, gets the beads from Joshi, and here comes through space and time, just a little bit wide, but Sarpei into the back line finds his 5th in a row before Sodos finally going to shut him down. Listemics handling the rest of Pandamonium underneath the tower and doing a pretty good job of it. Still about half HP, and it's 1 for 1, but the one member Pandamonium lost was their Fed jungler. Just F6 still looking to siege.
Raul not quite on the mark as Worst Turtle teleports in, loses out on the majority of his HP bar, and immediately walks away. That should spell the end of Just F6's siege attempt, but maybe not the end of the fight. Pandamonium now stepping up.
Joshi on the chase. He still has Aegis, but no beads at this point. Pandamonium now feeling better about their odds, as you mentioned, but don't forget that Just F6 is the one team with the sustain. Pandamonium doesn't have anything on their side akin to Isodos' Solar Blessing, so no continued fight. Is that little skirmish really the first one that's broken out in quite some time, but it ends up going in Just F6 favor.
It does. Just F6 steps forward to a tier 1 tower from behind, but not overly behind. Only a couple hundred gold separating these two teams. Trades out the jungler in exchange for their own support, and that's a trade you're willing to take every single day of the week, especially considering how high Sarpei's bounty had to have been at that point. The only one on his team having found a kill. He was 5-0. Gotta think he's worth a fair bit there. Primal Fury spawning up very soon as his Pyromancer. Last time around, we saw a trade. Pandamonium took the Pyro, and Just F6 grouped themselves up around the Gold Fury. We'll see whether or not that stays true this time around, or whether or not these teams are willing to dig in their heels and fight over it.
Just F6 in a position to go for these objectives with that Frenzy still up, though it isn't upgraded for Rotwin. Certainly has got to be more important to upgrade that Frenzy than to get Cloak 1 and receive 10 of each protection, but it decides to hold off. Preds having his upgraded does matter in this instance, as Serrated Edge is finished now for Worst Turtle. We're seeing more and more Serrated Edge. Feel like it's one of those items that has been undervalued for a little bit, Miff. How do you like Serrated Edge, specifically in the jungle?
I like it a lot. It's just this nice bridge item. It's a decent stat stick to get you everything that you need. It allows you to stick around in these fights a little bit longer, and on a godlike set, it's just going to synergize well. And Worst Turtle needs to be in these fights longer. We have not seen a ton of him. 3,200 damage at the 20-minute mark. On a set, a god that is pretty controlling in the early game, just fantastic poke potential. I just need to see a little bit more, and maybe Serrated Edge gives him the edge that he needs. Oh, nice little pun.
Nicely done. Very nicely done. Also, that 20% pen not hurting in that regard, because sometimes it's a little bit hard to find that percent penetration on these assassins. Serrated Edge will do that for you. Oracle Vision has fallen off for Just F6, but they still have the Sentry Ward. Pandemonium has not cleared that out. In fact, they don't have a ward in inventory right now. Not a whole lot of wards on the map for them either, so maybe a little bit greedy with how they're spending that gold. They're going to try and pull it back anyways. Good wall from Rotwood. Here's the Frenzy, though, coming from Preds as they're trying to hunt down Sotos. Kana looking for him. Toddy going to fall as well. It's a double kill for Sarpei to start it off. You might be able to make it a triple, but Kana's going to step up and be the one to get himself on the board. Worst Turtle will fall. It is a triple kill for Sarpei at the end of the day, and a 4-for-0 Pandemonium looking for the deicide.
Yeah, Lastemics should be able to get out of there. That is a full health Cucullin in rage stance. Still has the CC immunity available. No way he puts up a defense around this tier 1, right? Maybe, if Pandemonium's willing to give him the desynced fight. Instead, though, they've got their eyes on the biggest objective on the map. Fire Giant going to get pulled on the 21-minute mark. I think Lastemics may as well step up and try and dissuade them. Even if he does die, the rest of his team should respawn in time to defend their towers. Instead, though, a little bit more concerned about himself, going to go pick up some farm on the map.
Both backliners still having relics might be the reason that he's
This
not,
would have been a
but
free
I agree.
defense.
Yeah, they're pretty low. I certainly would have tossed my hat in the ring, but Lastemics played it nice and safe, keeping that KDA pristine. I was so focused, Mifflin, in that fight on what was happening to Sotos. He was getting dove heavily that I didn't see how Toddy got killed so quickly, but he still had both relics up whenever he died.
Yeah, it looked to me like Josh was able to slam him with the unstable vortex. I mean, Just F6, if we want to go back to how that fight started, it's Rotwin walking up, goes immediately into 4 members of Pandemonium, and like a cartoon turns the corner, locks eyes with them, and decides that maybe not exactly where I want to be, and it slams that S key, and the rest of Pandemonium just avalanche their way through the back line of Just F6. It just felt like the Order side team was not willing to step in and defend the Gold Fury, so what are you doing there anyway? You know, if you don't want to fight, maybe just go back to farming.
Definitely a bit of a desync from Just F6, and eventually Pandemonium will make their way back towards the Fury that initially started this whole engagement, but now much better off as they finished off a few absolutely critical items. Spectral for both frontliners of Kana and Preds, Rod of Tahuti done, and now starter upgraded for Joshi. Sarpei getting close to that Titan's Bane, but already has the Bumpa's Hammer. Streak Up likely to be full build. I mean, this Pandemonium squad now, this game has been close, and it's only a 5k deficit for Just F6. But I feel like with all of these power items being completed and all these starters being upgraded for Pandemonium, they've maybe maximized that 5,000 gold difference as much as you can.
Yeah, it's very fortuitous timing for the Chaos team, and that 5,000 very likely going to balloon out to closer to 8 or 9 once they're done with these Tier 2 towers. We'll see if they're willing to go ahead and start to siege the Phoenix, or if they want to go ahead and take the safer objectives first. But the defense potential of Just F6 is good. They can sustain with the raw heals to match what Fire Giants bring in. They've got decent burst as well. Pandamonium are going to have to tread lightly on this offense, maybe worried about the all-in commit from Just F6, disengage, and then go back in once Ymir's used that freeze, or once Lystemix' ult is down. It's going to be a lot easier to work your way forward.
Wall from Rotwin once again starts off the fight, but this time a little bit less committal from Just F6. Remember that they are the ones with the sustain, but Sodos with the battle heal that time around. Rotwin gonna press the frenzy and get the fight started. Both supports are ready to go, but Kana's the one in the back line creating space. Lystemix doing the same, but to a lesser degree. Sarpé has won his jungler face-off up against Worst Turtle already. Just F6 sent running, and it's because of Sarpé's pressure. Instantly forces everybody back, and the left side Phoenix falls.
Man, Worst Turtle got the frenzy and got the biggest ego boost of his life there. My man hit the Tokyo Drift into 5 members of Pandamonium alone. Maybe just did not quite catch the memo, didn't want to leave the bird to the rest of Just F6, so Worst Turtle left high and dry, and he's going to die in a situation like that 9 times out of 10.
Still 20 seconds on his respawn as Pandamonium going to try again underneath this mid-Phoenix. Just F6 has some ultimates coming up. Sodos should have his up soon as Preds gets frozen. Plenty of damage onto him, but Lystemix taking equal damage on this left-hand side. Mid-Phoenix down to below half, and Rotwin much lower than that, and Sarpé gonna whittle him down from a range. Now Piercing Moonlight might have just taken Sarpé into the bad part of town. Shut down for Toddy as Sarpé realized his mistake quickly, but once you shoot it, you can't take it back.
Worst Turtle working his way forward again, not quite happy with how the last engagement went for him, but Pandamonium seem like they know better. No reason to fight anymore. We've already got what we want. Left and center Phoenix already taken down, and Fire Giant buff wearing off right now. Going to be respawning in exactly 1 minute, and you got to believe Pandamonium, with a 9,000 gold lead, are going to be the first ones on the scene. I do not think Just F6 can really afford to take a fight in the jungle right now. Instead, should be more worried about securing their own base and potentially getting ready for the last, or maybe not the last if they are able to defend it, defense of the game on the right-hand side.
Sarpé continues to be the one racking up all the kills. That 1 kill for Kana around the Gold Fury fight that broke the game open remains the only kill not on Sarpé's belt. So him, let's say, taking a bit of a tour into Just F6's fountain does give away a lot of gold once again. Toddy was the one to receive it, and it looks like it's paying off. Ornate Arrow done for him now, Deathbringer done as well. So Toddy equally strong to that of Streak Up coming into this fight.
He is, and Toddy GR is going to be the target, isn't he? Sarpé, although able to bestow the gold, Tsukiyomi and a Chernobog, he's going to be able to just as easily take it away. Very good chase down potential with that Piercing Moonlight. The disarm is going to make it very hard for Toddy to take this fight as a hunter as well. Surprisingly, he elects to go for the Aegis instead of the Shell inside of this match. Would have helped him out a decent bit in that 1v1, but Just F6's positioning has got me thrown for a loop. This is a weird proxy in the center of the map and a split push on the left.
They don't want to defend this Fire Giant, so they're just trying to get as many waves pushed as possible. Probably the right call to not try and defend, but I don't know how much better your Phoenix defense is going to be this time around. Toddy not even able to get that tier 1 on the left-hand side. Of course, he has his ultimate to get here soon as Lystemix blink in, knocks up literally everybody on Pandamonium, but Sodos' ultimate not quite as accurate. It goes wide, and Pandamonium just back up and go, that was cool. Now we don't have to worry about it. Frenzy in, Darwin Pillars in, through space and time in, right on top of Toddy. Didn't even get a relic off this time. Joshi throws his hat in the kill ring, double kill for the mid laner for Pandamonium, and they now get to do whatever they want in this base. And the Titan's really the only thing left in their way. Soto's doing what he can. Ultimate still down for a little bit as the Titan gets whittled down. Pandamonium break the game open around the Gold Fury and take the game 1.
Look, that is a cut and dry jungle diff game, isn't it? I mean, it's not often that all the kills land on the jungler, but maybe we can evaluate the damage a little bit more. So I believe we saw Set finish out that game with about 8,800. Meanwhile, Tsukiyomi had closer to 20,000. We need to get the jungler for Just F6 a little bit more involved in Game 2, or Game 2 could potentially be the last one of this set.
And Wursturtle has had his moments during his career at this level. I think joined this team after this phase has started, but he's had a storied career in the EU SCC, certainly a little bit uncharacteristic for him to look that far behind in the jungle. We'll see if he can turn it around as well as the rest of Just F6. We're going to throw to a quick break, and we'll be right back to bring you Game 2.
Game 1 feels pretty cut and dry for Pandamonium. Sarpei had a great game. Gore, I think a bit of a gap in the jungle here, at least in game number 1. Not that that's always what is going to happen between these two teams, but Sarpei just kind of ran away with things here.
And I will say, after a few weeks of like, okay, well, Sarpe, like, you looked okay this week, or like, you looked good this week, maybe didn't look as good the next week. Like, this was a really, really good performance. And again, I think everybody around them was able to. I feel like maybe Kana, and I didn't catch if anybody else took some towards the very end, but like, if somebody else was going to let him confirm every single kill that their team had, it would have been fun. But either way, I think it was just a great showing for the Tsukiyomi in the jungle. I mean, look, a 5.75 KDA in one game is a really, really good pickup. And the thing is typically, sometimes you'll see, like, a lot of kills, and the damage numbers won't match. With 20k damage up there as well, like, Sarpe just happened to be everywhere that was necessary for them. A couple of kills that were picked up for Just F6 looked really good, but the fact that Sarpe is confirming these, diving into the backline, getting away with it some of these times, really, really made it fun to watch.
Yeah, he was not only getting the last hits in a lot of these fights. One of his deaths was a piercing moonlight, I think, that took him into the fountain, and then that, I think, halved the KDA that Sarpe was able to bring here in game number 1. But
sometimes you do it.
Look, yeah, sometimes it happens. Sometimes it sends you by the wayside. But look, this is a tough one, I think, for Just F6. Or maybe it's an easy one, depending on how you want to look at it, because the bounce back now is clear, right? It's, all right, let's just try to keep Sarpe from having a nutty 10-2-3 performance here in game number 2. Tsukiyomi, though, Gore, continues to be a very priority pick here, and this is an example of why. Because it has the potential to take a game over in the way that Sarpe just did.
I mean, look, 2 deaths, 10, 2, and 3, like 13 total kills on the team. If he didn't get it, Sarpe was a part of it somehow anyway.
Yep.
And I have to actually give a huge shout out to
Top
Preds.
damage.
13 assists there for the support. Like, Preds, granted, it's probably easier on Ganesh, right, than anybody else to get those assists. But still, it's nice to see that your support's been a part of it as well. Like, the jungle support combo, because we talk about it so often, sometimes you get to see some thrown by the wayside. I mean, here, Rotwin, you're on Ymir, you've got the other one over there on set for the jungle, and it didn't quite click over on that side, and so being able to see Ganesh come through, I think, and have a good day, it's nice for me as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, 20,000 damage, top in the game, top kills in the game as well. That's an all-around performance from Sarpe. And that then raises the question, Gore. You move into picks and bans for game 2 here. If you're Just F6, if you're not going to pick the Tsukiyomi, do you think you have to ban it away?
I think if you are first pick, you scoop him up number 1, right? I can't remember, what was it? They locked in the Ymir first overall? Yeah,
Ymir,
you grab the Tsukiyomi over that any day. And then I think if you are second pick, you probably start weighing in your head about the bans, right? And they didn't necessarily have bans that I think are easily replaceable. Maybe the Wukong for the Tsukiyomi. Right. I mean, Wukong still going to be a menace for you, but I don't think he's going to go 10-2, so that's probably something a little more manageable. I think it depends on which angle they're diving into. There's also a question of whether or not they let a couple of bans through. If you're second pick, then you can get some of the more power picks on the back end there if 3 or more are available.
Let's answer some of these questions, Gore, in picks and bans. For game number 2 between Just F6 and Pandamonium. Pandamonium 1 game away from moving up into the 4-win category, and Just F6 1 loss away from continuing their loss streak here in the SCC. Just F6 is in that first pick slot. Sobek's going to continue to get banned out here. Top ban in the SCC is Sun Wukong, which I find somewhat interesting here. More so than banned more so than the Sobek, though maybe that starts to change here over the next few weeks. Umoja taken off the table as well, and then the Tiamat. So it's really that final ban slot here for Just F6 that my eyes are on, because it was the Sun Wukong there in game number 1. You just got crushed by a Tiamat there, and Just F6 are going to stick with the Sun Wukong, Gore.
Yeah, and I mean, Tsukiyomi, like, when you look at it, the top ban against Pandamonium has been that Tsukiyomi. If you don't first pick it here, you can almost guarantee Sarpe is going to go back to it. Like, it's one thing to have a good performance on a god. You might not have the exact same performance. I don't know that Sarpe goes 10-2 and 3 in a second game.
Wow.
But I know Sarpe is feeling warmed up and is feeling good about it, and absolutely will pick this if it is available for him.
Wow.
They go for the Ymir. And I will say this, Just F6, at least their top 2, right? The Ymir, the set, those were good picks. They just didn't quite get the performance they wanted to. This is one of those instances, especially with the nature of the game, I think you are allowed more than anything to thread some of the same needles as Just F6, but there definitely has to be a couple of filler picks that are changed.
Wow, look, Pandemonium are just going to run back the same top 2. Why not when you had a game like you did in game number 1. So the Tsukiyomi for Sarpei yet again. That win there brings it to right around a 50% win rate. So just a little bit more losing before game number 1, but now right back up to winning. Chernobog, I mean, it's sort of hard to judge, I think, Gore, how any of the individual picks did on Just F6 because it was such a runaway, knockdown, drag-out type of game by Sarpei on that Tsukiyomi. A big pivot here, though, is that instead of the set, it's going to be the Ymir Chernobog, but then instead of the set, Scylla gets locked in the top 3 here for Just F6. Scylla was one of the bans later on in the ban phase. Do you think that's enough of a pivot to compete with the Tsukiyomi pick?
I mean, I actually really like it. I think it's a good pick for Just F6. It's also a good one to get away from Joshi. And, I mean, Pandamonium are running pretty much the same, no, not pretty much, the exact same top 3 here, so I'm excited to see what they're going to be able to do with it, and maybe some of, again, just the alterations that Just F6 make going forward, right? You have the Scylla, so you know it's not going to be able to be banned. They already have, presumably, solo jungle carry, so you can focus support, you can focus mid down a little bit more, but they throw another ban to that Cerberus. Like, Pandemonium definitely have some strong picks, but I feel like they have just as equal second-line strong picks that are coming through for them. And I don't know if this is a mid lane ban. Yeah, it's going to be the Yanis. It feels like it's going to be limiting Pandemonium, but maybe not enough. Scylla's going to be safer, but I bet they have a second mid laner in mind that can handle her just fine.
You have to. Gore, I'm sorry. I'm wild. I'm just... That entire time I stared at Bellini getting her head scratched, and it warmed my heart to its very core there, and it was absolutely adorable. Look at her just chilling in the back. Oh, be still, my heart. How is a guy supposed to and look, it's such a simple little thing, but there's something about the little head scratches that just get to me. Bellini having a fantastic Saturday, as are Pandemonium. Look, if they're going to be able to run back the same draft, they're going to be feeling good. Just F6 get the set anyway. Giannis gets taken off the table alongside the Cerberus. So, Just F6 now need to start to look towards that solo lane. Solo lane didn't necessarily spiral out of control in the same way that the jungle did, but are you surprised that Just F6 are going with that same jungle matchup, right? I mean, again, maybe it's just a hyper-strong individual performance from Sarpei, but the set didn't really surprise me at all or stand out to me, I suppose, in game number 1. Nobody from Just F6 had a great game, but it's kind of a run back here outside of the mid lane, Gore.
I really like the Cucullin lock-in. I think, again, a lot of the things that went well for Just F6 kind of existed in the solo lane. I think you could have maybe a little more presence, but the set, the Ymir, like, a lot of the mid 3v3, the Ymir Scylla set here are going to have to pick up a lot. Scylla is going to be able to bring a little bit more to the raw, a little safer overall, right? The CC immune and the ultimate, as well as movement speed on the Imo monster to get you out of there. Lots of damage, good, like, slow from crush, as well as the Sikkim root, as well as, you know, your presumably beads and Aegis on top of all of that stuff. Theoretically, you're going to be just fine. But now there's a Scylla on the other side. Like, everything that I normally say about Scylla, especially when there's like a Merlin or something on the other side where it's maybe not as big secure, well, now Scylla's going to be available there in the mid lane for them as well, although also a Set or a Ymir or a Cucullin. Like, a lot of good that Just F6 have open because of this the Morrigan.
Agreed. It's a good draft yet again here for Pandemonium. It's one of those things where it's a fantastic draft from Pandemonium. I think it's a good draft from Just F6 as well. At some point, you have to separate how good things went in game number 1 because Sarpei just kind of went off. You have to look at the draft. You're kind of resetting here. Just F6 are clearly thinking that it was just a standout performance in game 1. We can kind of reconvene ourselves here in game 2, bring things back to normalcy with a similar draft, and it'll be interesting, Gore, to see if they're able to do so.
Yeah, I think for Just F6, a lot of it's going to be in the details, right? Like, I mean, just how do you start your early game? How do you deal with this Tsukiyomi? Last game, he was able to kind of run rampant. Can you control Sarpei a little bit more? But Pandemonium, if Sarpei's controlled, somebody else is going to step up, so Just F6 have a lot to adapt to.
Yeah, we'll see if we can keep Sarpei out of the double-digit kills category. Game 2 kicking off right now.
Dave, I think Sarpei staying out of double-digit kills is going to be a requirement for Just F6 to extend this set to a third game. Aggro and Mifflin still with you. Mifflin, look, Just F6, they're trying new things. You know, they've struggled so far. They haven't found their set win. But it surprised me to see them let Sarpei have the Tsukiyomi again. It requires a different type of person to look Sarpei in the face and go, yeah, you didn't do enough to earn a ban on the Tsukiyomi after that first game.
Yeah, I mean, there's something to be said of, all right, we've got a plan. There are a lot of really good bans that need to be dropped, so maybe we have to address the Tiamats of the world. Don't want these guys playing on her, things along those lines. But when someone plays as well as Sarpei did in Game 1, I think that you owe it to yourselves on Just F6 to make sure that he doesn't do it to you again. It could go one of two ways in my mind. Either it's a call out saying, all right, you got lucky, you got first blood, and then like 3 more kills after that, back to back. Of course, you're going to have a decent match. You can't do it again, or Sarpei's just going to do it again. We'll see whether or not Just F6 or Big Brain or Smooth Brain in the next coming minutes.
A little bit of an unfortunate interaction there as Preds goes underneath Toddy on that dash, and now it's Preds the one in trouble. He still has the shell, and it is upgraded, so block stack's pretty good up against this Ymir. Rotwin has made an adjustment. It goes with the blink instead of the shell this time around. That's one of the only adjustments that Just F6 has made. The only other one is trading out their Ra from last game into a Scylla this time around.
Yeah, upgrade, by the way, Scylla's very good in Season 8. That just consistent range damage as well as CC lockdown to follow up off of freeze or a knockup from Listimics, anything along those lines. I mean, Sikkim is just one of the best abilities in the Mage's kit. And then I'm a Monster, can't really argue against that. Just a great confirmation tool on objectives as well as a way to snowball a team fight, able to confirm 1 kill, and they can do it again and again and again as long as you're getting those last hits.
Also has a little bit more setup for herself this time around. Don't think Sotos really landed a whole lot of high-impact snipes last game. We'll see if maybe this time he can be a little bit more impactful. There's Pandamonium also very similar to their last game. Only one change for them as well, and it's Joshi on the Morrigan in mid this time around.
Which is going to be a similar style. You still have an unorthodox mage out of mid, but this time you also have 9 other gods getting played out of mid besides just the Morgan herself. Joshi, if he is able to make it into a very late game situation, is going to have a lot of targets. They're going to be very easy for him to find one-shot potential onto. Sotos, Worst Turtle, even Toddy going to be incredibly in danger come the 5-on-5 late game team fight phase. But until then, I believe Joshi is going to be transforming more than likely into either Set or this Achilles, or even potentially the Tsukiyomi in the early game has a lot of good targets for it to just shift up these fights in the 3v3.
Yeah, I like the Tsukiyomi transformation in particular. Set also very good. It's a matter of how long you want to stay in that transformation, because you got that Kingslayer will leave you in it for a while. Blink in from Rotwin and streak up unfazed. No beads usage. Shell was still on cooldown for Preds. No one seemed particularly concerned, and simply dashes away after the fact. So first blink for Rotwin, not exactly the value town that he was looking for.
And he can try again in 2 minutes when that's back and available to him. And until then, I don't think he's going to be doing too much inside that lane. Last time around, Rotwin did rotate out off of this first back and then left Toddy GR on an island inside the dual lane. We'll see if he does the same. As look at this, Worst Turtle making his first rotation over, seeing if maybe he can make something happen.
Knows that Streak Up doesn't have the ultimate quite yet, and Kingslayer very good in situations like this, where you just can chase them down a lane, but Streak Up a little bit too close to his tower to have that be the case. Wouldn't ever dare to call Streak Up a tower boy in this instance, but I suppose you could. Worst Turtle going to use the Kingslayer on Preds, whose dash is down. Shell is up and available, but not used quite yet at the very end. So close there for Sotos. But look at this on the left-hand side. Toddy in trouble. He's ulted already, trying to help out on that engage, and Streak Up has taken the advantage because of it, but now out of mana and no airstrike available in a bad spot. Tries to get the back off, but it's going to be stopped until Joshi actually transforms into the Chernabog and is going to give his man some backup. It's first blood for Streak Up, but it's because Joshi was on the way. Stun lands for Sarpei, and it's a kill for Joshi as well. What a play from Pandemonium's mid laner.
But you got to understand that Toddy GR has to step back up there. If he doesn't, it just allows Streak Up to make it out. His team had already started the rotation, so he goes for the winning line, which is making sure that Streak Up isn't able to get back to base safely. It just cost him his life. Wasn't quite working the calculus for Joshi to turn into himself and teleport over there and turn that one around. But it wasn't For not, for just F6, they are able to strip away a couple of those defensive relics. Beads used by both the Morrigan and this Jing Wei, which should create opportunities for Worst Turtle for the next couple of minutes to be able to find some ganks.
Still not a lot of hard CC for just F6, as we covered in their Game 1 draft. Kind of a disservice to us, man. I mean, normally, especially in the games that are going to be paced as Game 1 was paced, we spend so much time talking about compositions and strengths and weaknesses. But we already did all that. We can't do it again. They've got 8 of the same 10 gods in this game, and the only differences are the mid laners, but all those points still stand. Not a lot of hard CC for just F6, so I don't know how risky it is to be on the map without those beads. Kana going to have to use that Fatal Strike, and now running towards assistance. Kingslayer is currently being channeled by Worst Turtle, but Listemix not interested in backing up. Maybe should have gotten the memo a little sooner. Sarpé, once again, I'm a Monster, connects this time around, and great damage onto Sarpé, but decides to bail out. As you mentioned, Worst Turtle was getting the wave instead of stepping up there. Sarpé was walking back in a lane on a sliver of HP, but Worst Turtle not on target.
Yeah, that is a incredibly ranked jungler move. Oh boy, my solo laner's dead? I get a wave to myself, and that's exactly what he does, but maybe misses an opportunity to finish off some kills. With the rest of Just F6 rotating in, trying to take that fight with Sotos, landing the ultimate, you probably want your set there to finish off those kills, find some sort of fruition off of that besides just picking up a wave, keeping that tower at full HP. But Worst Turtle is one to play a little bit safer throughout the early game and might be a little bit demoralized, if you would, by falling behind as he has so far, maybe about a half-level lead in favor of Sarpé. Worst Turtle just now ticking over to 8. Sarpé's been there, and it's almost a exact same pace that we saw in Game 1, isn't it, Aggro? Pandamonium kind of controlling the early game here, dictating the pace, and they're setting a moderate pace, speed walking, if you would.
Yeah, a little power walking down the street. They don't have those little tiny weights in their hands, though, that you see some people do when they're power walking, and that's good because those things make it look already weirder than it is. Sotos has to use the beads off Pred's setup. Now no dash, so this wall is going to be good from Rotwin. Freeze, I'm a Monster, all connecting, but Pred's still alive for the moment. No way he's allowed to get out here.
There he is.
Finally, Worst Turtle going to make him pay, and Sarpé's got to use that Piercing Moonlight. Good ultimate by Rotwin right on time, brings Sarpé in, and Joshi now in a bad spot as he's transformed into the Turnabog once again. Not exactly the ideal transform in that position. 3 for 0 in Just F6's favor.
When Just F6 is all on the same page, it looks pretty good, doesn't it? They all agree this is a good time to fight, even though Pandamonium is largely inside their own tower. Maybe a slight miscalculation from Sarpé using the Piercing Moonlight to re-enter that engagement, trying to finish off Worst Turtle, but with everyone from Just F6 stacked up as they were, he couldn't get all the target charges onto Worst Turtle himself, and instead finds himself inside the center of a fully charged Shards of Ice. Not going to survive that one very easily. Pandamonium go down, and now the game has largely equalized yet again. Only about 200 gold separating these two squads, but at this phase of the game, you gotta think that Just F6 should be a little bit more confident around these neutral objectives just because they have so much more secure potential. Between Shards of Ice and I'm a Monster, they can likely secure at 1600 damage. That's much higher than anything Pandamonium is able to put out, so it's not exactly a coin toss. It's just whether or not Just F6 should be able to disengage cleanly if they do decide to pull a Gold Fury.
Wouldn't be a bad call from here. They've got XP advantages in jungle and a slight one in mid. If I remember correctly, Joshi just ticked over to level 9, and indeed Sotos now level 10. So this is a good opportunity to do it once those ultimates are back up and ready to go. Joshi still has to wait a little bit longer on his Changeling transformation. So Rotwin and Worst Turtle setting up a trap. They're going to find Preds. Not exactly the target they wanted, but Listemix undeterred. Going to use the ultimate. Shards of Ice comes out as well. Not enough to take him down, and Listemix is going to fall to this Piercing Moonlight. Rotwin now left in a bad spot, but it's Sotos who Sarpé is chasing down. Kana going to get here as well and set up Sarpé for yet another double kill. Pandamonium bounces back after one bad fight.
Yeah, Just F6 trying to look for a second verse, same as the first. Dive to tier 1 mid tower again, but this time the target is Preds, and that's probably not the best target, right? You don't want to be trading out your lives for support in general, putting yourselves in a bad position, and not even able to secure that kill. Pandamonium immediately rotate back through and turn it around. 2 for 0, and the Gold Fury going to be the first separation of this fight, or this match rather. Pandamonium now have themselves a pretty solid lead, and with a neutral objective already spawned on the right-hand side, gotta think they're going to feel pretty confident themselves now to step up and start a neutral. Just F6 overstep just slightly and lose all that ground they had made up in the last 2 minutes.
Just can't imagine Sarpe being able to make good plays on the Tsukiyomi for 2 games in a row. How lucky is that for Pandamonium, man? Surely they couldn't have taken it away or even picked it. Remember they picked Rotwin's Ymir instead of that Tsukiyomi top pick? I don't know, man. Sarpe's just looking really, really comfortable on this god. Every time he's making these plays, I'm thinking it didn't have to be this way. This is the fate that Just F6 chose.
Yeah, I'm sure they're thinking that as well. If it's a talk about relative value, I'd say that Sarpe's made the argument for Tsukiyomi. If you really want to prioritize that Ymir, well, your Ymir's a level down, behind in stacks, and also 1 and 2 at this point, having fallen twice already. Maybe we see more from Rotwin. I mean, Ymir is certainly a strong pick in his own right, but taking it away from Sarpe would have been huge. Toddy GR now on the retreat. Streak Up been getting the better end of these fights every single time, establishing his pressure, and so far, we have not seen Worst Turtle make a rotation over the duo lane in earnest. Streak Up has been allowed to do whatever he wants.
So difficult to punish that Jingwei even after she's using that dash in aggressively, especially when Streak Up is full on the Devo Gauntlet stacks. Only 42 so far for Toddy. Pyromancer's the call once again for Pandamonium. Blink in from Lystemix, gonna be here just a little bit shy of the damage as it does go Pandamonium's way, but Sarpe now in trouble. Beads already used and he's just trying to get his damage off while he can. Sodos gets the last hit.
They going for it?
That's exactly what Just F6 wanted, and indeed they are going for it. Joshi has the ultimate, and he could be on the way. Lystemix creating a good zone, but I think that might have actually tipped off Pandamonium. Lystemix was that far forward. Kana now going to realize what's happening. Fatal Strike to buy time as Just F6 is pulled off the Fire Giant. I'm a Monster wide left. But they're trusting Lystemix to get the final hit, and he will not. Kana is out and survives, and here comes the collapse from Preds and from Joshi. Joshi has that ultimate, and he's going to focus out Toddy. There goes Joshi into the Tsukiyomi, and they already took care of Sarpe once, but can they do it again?
Well, it doesn't seem like it. Joshi now on the chase. Does not quite make contact with the slow, so Lystemix able to walk his way out of there. Once Kana shows face inside of that Fire Giant pit, you got to make a decision. And Just F6 2, it's to kill the Achilles. Unfortunately, not quite able to execute on it, and he just baits them all 5 members of Just F6 straight into that tier 2 tower on the right-hand side. Pandamonium did have to go on a bit of a long journey to get that collapse, maybe thinking that Kana would have retreated towards his teammates, but instead makes a better decision and drags them to the opposite side. Now Just F6, again, overstepped their bounds. They get 1 or 2 picks early on, and then go for a 12-minute Fire Giant. That's not going to work. Rotwin's level 9. He cannot tank that up.
Just no, not even close to the damage necessary in order to get it done. It ends up really costing them quite a bit. Look at the gold lead now for Pandamonium as it has ballooned to 3,000. Streak Up got a ton of solo farm on the left-hand side. Toddy spent so much time on the right, only to then die and not really get a whole lot done besides that. Level 15 for Streak Up, and he's probably close to 16 at this point, whereas Toddy just now hit that level 13 mark. Not a good position to be in now if you are Just F6, because the carries just don't have the damage to take down this front line for Pandamonium or have the matchup to answer Streak Up.
Yeah, Streak Up so far, again, has just been allowed to free farm, and a Jingwei who's allowed to get to that crit phase of the game for free is a Jingwei that is going to be flourishing every single day of the week. But it seems like Just F6 has not lost the will to fight, have they, Aggro? They keep stepping up everywhere. Even Toddy, who has yet to get the better end of one of these trades, still stands his ground up against this Jingwei inside of the duo lane. I like it from Just F6.
Blink on a Sarpe, that's his beads. Now on cooldown,
where'd he go?
Buddy, not right there. You can't step up that far. And Joshi makes him pay. Now one Tsukiyomi wasn't enough for Pandamonium. They're going to take 2, and Rotwin going to get whittled down. Double kill for Joshi. 1 more for Sarpe in that fight as they eviscerate Just F6 in the mid 3v3.
Yeah, I like the mentality, but not the execution. from Just F6. Toddy GR used the ultimate to defend the Tier 2 tower and is able to force Streak Up back in this exchange. But another Tier 2 tower is under duress on the map, and that's in the center. And already Pandamonium have it down to half, and nobody in range to defend it. Lastemics, the closest up to bat, still not quite there in time. Streak Up may not have been able to take down the tower on the left-hand side, but can at least start up the Primal Fury for his team.
Should be one that goes down without too much contest from Just F6. Toddy, thinking about it, gonna see a level 16 Achilles and realize that his auto just did 76 damage to him and go, yeah, never mind. Yeah, you guys can have that one. No shot that I'm stepping up from there. It's all coming up Pandamonium here in Game 2.
Yeah, nearly 7,000 gold in the lead. Pandamonium, I think, could go for an early Fire Giant. Maybe not 12 minutes like we saw from Just F6, but 16 minutes in already, we're starting to see the full squad of Pandamonium at their second relic slot. Frenzy picked up as well and upgraded by Preds. They should have the burn potential to put down a Fire Giant relatively easily. Worst Turtle stepping forward here, and he's got his team behind him. This Just F6 squad, you cannot break their spirit.
Looking to do something. There's Aegis used by Sarpei. Now going to use the ultimate to reposition, but it's right on top of a crush, and Soto's going to do exactly that, but then he gets flattened by Kana coming in. Joshi going to go, we lost our first Sukiyomi.
Nice wall.
How about the second? Nice wall from Rotwin. Not going to be enough, though, as Streak Up rejoins the fray and gets his second kill of the contest. Pandamonium now with 2 dead for Just F6, but only 1 on their side. This could be risky, Mifflin. We already saw one team make a mistake at fire. Pandamonium could be next.
Lastemics uses the dash aggressively, loses out on half of his HP bar as well. He is not kiting like Kana did. Instead, takes the fight inside the pit to set up for the rest of his team.
But Worst Turtle and Toddy are here now, and the health bars are looking slim for Pandamonium. Not enough to chase down and kill them from Just F6, and it's going to be the Pyromancer Consolation for Pandamonium instead of that Fire Giant. Lastemics gets in there and dies, but does his job. Lots of damage and keeps Pandamonium from securing the fire.
A valiant effort, my friend. Worst Turtle, deja vu. Last time he respawned, he walked us to the exact same spot and died. This time, though, not going to chase into the Tier 2, not going to chase into the back camps either. I think Just F6 do a decent job there of making sure Pandamonium aren't at least able to do the Fire Giant. I think they had effectively accomplished that earlier on, once they'd already taken away all the ultimates from Pandamonium, but trading out Lastemics' life, I guess, at the end of the day, if we're going to be results-oriented, still keeps that neutral objective alive. Pandamonium, though, have only furthered their lead in the meantime. I think they could just go ahead and regroup, go to the Fire Giant, and force another fight and see whether or not Just F6 are willing to step up. But if history's any indicator, Aggro, Just F6 is willing to step up.
They will. Maybe first. Maybe before Pandamonium even gets to the Fire Giant. They've been looking for these picks, and with the Chernobog on their side, it does make it a little bit easier to execute on that, but has not been clean enough from the Just F6 squad. A grouping on the left is a little bit curious from Pandamonium. I mean, Odie Fury isn't up for quite some time. They do have Ward Vision on fire, so they aren't too concerned about it being taken away from them, as looks like it's going to be a heavy commit to knock down this less than half health Tier 2 tower on the duo side.
Yeah, who needs Fire Giant, right? If no one's going to be here, we might as well take down the Tier 2 tower. What are you going to do after you get Fire Giant? This? I mean, it's just a stopgap measure. Who needs it? Instead, going to go ahead and take down the Tier 2. No defense from Just F6. Instead, split push on the opposite side. Lastemics able to take down a Tier 1 inside of the Soul lane. Looks like he might even attempt to pressure out the Tier 2 or at least strip away a buff. This is interesting decision-making from Pandamonium, I'd say. Grouping up on the left-hand side does strip away the Tier 2, but it means that you're removing all your pressure on the right. If they had just spent this time establishing further ward dominance around the Fire Giant, it'd make this subsequent dance much easier, but instead it's Just F6 there first, setting up an ambush, but no wards inside their pockets means that they just show up on the map for Pandamonium and then disengage.
Definitely a lack of wards in the inventory. Maybe everyone's been out for a while. Hasn't been back to base to buy in a little bit. About average across the board on the wards placed. Couple players in the double digits. But 3 of those are Pandamonium members. Certainly matters, as now they're going to try and pull the Fire Giant. This is pre-20 minutes, so not as much damage on it as you might normally expect. Look at where Joshi is, around the back. Here comes a Frenzy popped by Preds, and they're looking for Rotwin and Lastemics. They're dumping a lot into this Ymir, and they will get him on the execute, but Joshi's been killed on the backside immediately. The backline takes care of him. I'm a Monster does not find a home as Streak Up takes care of the other frontliner, but Worst Turtle now has his opportunity to make a play too low in order to continue, but Streak Up and Kana the only ones left for Pandamonium. Toddy gonna get himself his second kill of the contest, as now Kana cannot find the stun. Toddy's gonna find another. No, it's Sodos who notches the double kill, and it's just F6 who finds the deicide.
That looked to me, Aggro, like an old-timey war battle, right? That like Revolutionary War style, the British just lining up and taking the engagement. Pandamonium did not bring a lot of nuance to that fight. Instead, it was a 4 versus 5 in the front with Joshi trying to flank the back by turning into Tsukiyomi, but immediately loses the 1v1 up against Toddy GR, and then from there, just F6 are able to dominate that engagement. Pandamonium not quite able to hang in after pulling the Fire Giant themselves, and this is going to be a Fire Giant pull from just F6. They've got a lot of time to work with. Still 20 seconds on Kana and 10 on Jingwei, and nobody there to defend. FG goes the way of the Order side team. Take a peek at the map, Aggro. Still 3 tier 2 towers standing for Pandamonium. That's 3 gold caches to be collected. Oni Fury on the other side as well. Might as well. I see no reason not to go ahead and cross your T's and dot your I's.
Seems like just F6 might be just stealing this one away from Pandamonium, who really had the game in hand and then used, what, 3, 4 ultimates onto the Ymir and immediately were punished for it. Oni Fury down to half. Sotos, of course, the one to secure, and just F6 are going to get it, but Preds not deterred. Piercing Moonlight this time will be enough, and Lystemics will fall quickly again. The front line of just F6 eviscerated in just seconds, and now Preds and Streak Up looking for even more. Worst Turtle going towards the only way he can, but I don't think that's going to get him out alive. What has happened in this game, Mifflin? First, it's Pandamonium who were really far ahead, then just F6 deicide them, and it really wasn't even that close. And now they lose 3 members, and Pandamonium doesn't have a scratch on them. They're going to be going for the left side Phoenix.
I'm not sure that just F6 even shot an ability towards Pandamonium in that fight. They got the gold 3 and the call was to disengage, but there's something to be said about a coordinated disengage. Sure, Sotos can jump over wall, as can Worst Turtle and Lystemics, but Routwin's not nearly as lucky. He needs the help of his team to get out of those situations. Instead, left on his own, and then from there, it's so easy for Pandamonium to just steamroll the rest of that engagement. I would have liked to have seen just F6 get the Fire Giant, reset, spend the gold from getting a deicide and an objective, and then regroup around the Oni Fury, where they would have had a much more even fight. Instead, they just walked straight over, and Pandamonium, well, they'd been 4, 5, 6,000 gold up at that point. Might as well take the engagement despite Fire Giant being on the belt of 5 members of just F6. Just a disjointed call from the Order side team, but still, they have a slight power play in the making. Sotos and Todi maintain their buffs, and those are 2 great targets to have them.
This is so risky from Rotwin and Sotos and Toddy. I mean, they are all by themselves. No way that Lystemics or Worst Turtle could come to assist, and they're playing on that red buff side. They're going to just steal it away, knowing that all 5 members of Pandamonium are now on the right, as a couple members have shown on the waves. Worst Turtle not going to back quite yet. They seem unwilling to defend this tier 2. Certainly, these guys need to get back in time for the Phoenix. Worst Turtle will begin his recall. And remember, Toddy can just get here with use of that ultimate, but no hesitation. Stop me if you heard that one before. For Pandamonium. Lystemics once again into the back line, and once again, he is already nearly dead. Joshi gonna make sure he finishes what his jungler started. It's a double kill for him, but if down he goes, now it's Kana surging forward, looking for Worst Turtle. Worst Turtle cannot find enough. Sarpei with the double, and Pandamonium gonna keep just F6 winless here in phase 1. 2-0 in their favor.
Sarpei with the triple kill to end that one out. Gotta imagine, Aggro, I think you alluded to it earlier, that could have been avoided, huh? The Tsukiyomi,
yeah.
What was that, a combined KD, 18 kills in the set, or something along those lines, maybe closer to 20. Yeah, next time just F6 you line up against Pandamonium, maybe toss some respect towards their jungler. Sarpei on an absolute tear.
Man, this Pandamonium team showed no fear in the mid to late game in this one. Even when they lose Fire Giant, they continue to surge forward. No hesitation from them on those fights, and they find the victory 2-0. We'll be right back with Death to break it down.
The drafts from Game 1 are almost copied and pasted here into Game number 2, and the outcome of Game number 1 is almost copied and pasted here into Game number 2. Not the way it happened, though. Gore, there was a lot more pushback from Just F6 here in this game. I would argue the control of the game around that Fire Giant was with Just F6. Unfortunately, a little timid on the shot calling, and the opposite from Pandamonium gave the game right back over.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting, like you said, point A and B for Game 1 and 2. A, at least, was very similar. Point B was the exact same with, Just F6's Titan falling down. But the path in between was way more wild in this one. It was really interesting to watch it. I will say, shout-outs to Pandamonium. A lot more people involved in getting kills than just Sarpé this time, although Sarpé making sure to have a lot more kills and a few more deaths on the board. It was very fun to watch how they kind of coalesced as a team. And man, for what, 18 minutes? It felt like just non-stop onslaught. I mean, not necessarily in terms of blood, but like with the control they have. Even here, 4 kills up, 4,000 gold in there in the lead. And they're able to control the game pretty easily. Joshi had a really good handle on this one. Same thing for Kana. But there was that massive deicide. I mean, you highlighted it, where it's just like out of nowhere, Just F6 just kind of smack Pandamonium down. They go, they take a Fire Giant, and then this is the fight that happens right after that. You don't get a Fury, and you don't get any kills, and you lose 2 members at the same time. You're forced to retreat. That, and then add on the fact that it kind of turned into this weird base racy, let's see if our 2 guys can take down tier 2s while your entire team rushes our right side Phoenix. It just didn't feel right from Just F6. I think they probably needed to pull back a little bit sooner there to get a full and better defense. And unfortunately for them, they just weren't there to really hold on to it, and it felt like Pandamonium kind of got to just roll right into the base from there.
Yeah, it's a much more team-centric win from Pandamonium top to bottom. Joshi had a fantastic game on this Morgan. The one Tsukiyomi felt like enough there in game number 1, but the double Tsukiyomi, because that was a pretty popular swap target for Joshi throughout this game, was just way too much. Double piercing Moonlight to connect onto the front or backliners. Free engage into the back there, Gore. It was just tough for Just F6. So, if we're kind of harping on what we did before this set kicked off, this is a team in Just F6 that hasn't gotten themselves a win yet, but they have shown us that they're willing to try and swap up the roster a little bit, get something moving in their direction. This one, maybe change up the picks and bans for game number 2, because 0-6, not feeling very good after 6 games are Just F6. Pandamonium, though, tie themselves with the accounting department up in that second place spot. Obviously, tiebreakers, head-to-head, all that comes into account, but looking purely at record, the fate is in these 2 teams' hands for one another here. Elysium still only 1 game ahead of those 2, but it feels like the Elysium team is the best team here in this region, should continue to grow on that lead up there in first.
I mean, honestly, I feel like right now, Just F6 Clay Soldiers are more in a position to really play upset for those top teams. But Snake Hunters is right there on their heels. I mean, they're in a really good position to, if you cause a loss for the accounting department or for Pandamonium or for Elysium here, any of those teams at the bottom 3 can really affect the outcomes of those top 3 that are really fighting for it, Dave. It's making things interesting there in Europe and making sure to keep them really close, even though it feels like Elysium at least is starting to pull ahead.
All 2-0s in Europe this week. A 2-1 over in North America. That was Average Joe's versus Tiburones. Tomorrow, 11 a.m., the final game of the SCC, North American SCC, and SCC in general, will kick off at 11 a.m. Eastern time before the SPL starts. Gore, what a day we had in the SPL yesterday, huh? Big upset there from the Bolts. They beat the Jade Dragons. Twitter just lit on fire. It was chaos.
They didn't just beat the Jade Dragons. They really beat the Jade Dragons. Like, that's the thing. Like, I had mentioned this afterward, and I just got to get it out there, where it was like in game 2, it wasn't like, oh, well, you just barely won that. Like, one really good fight 40 minutes in. No, they won those games, man. Game 3 was a little closer, but it was very fun to watch.
Incredible. And look, the Bolts got another matchup tomorrow against the Kings, so that's to look forward to there. A full Saturday of SPL action kicks off in about 30 minutes or so go grab a snack, grab some food, settle in. And in the meantime, we talked about all the drama and stuff that unfolded yesterday. We've got a great roster apocalypse video that'll be airing before the SPL kickoff. So stick around right here on twitch.tv/SmiteGame. There we go. SPL kicks off in about 30 minutes.